Tulsi Gabbard's joining us right now. She's a contributor to Sekulow broadcast. And Tulsi, I want to talk to you first about this because, again, you're in the military. And this idea, it's pretty frustrating to us when we see maybe what is going on with this Cuba policy that we can't figure out. 100 miles off our coast, an island nation. Why can't we figure out some kind of deal that would make them, instead of being such an enemy of the United States or willing to take resources from enemies of the United States? So there's a new report that the Chinese military is going to put a training base, a joint training base with the Cubans and the Chinese, and it's 100 miles off our coast. And to me, it just feels like if that moves forward, it's a total diplomatic failure of the United States. And it seems maybe because we have bad policy towards Cuba and we're not willing to kind of rethink our strategy towards Cuba instead of making it kind of demonizing it as this kind of country we can't work with, even as it's gone through generations of leaders. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jordan, there are, I want to take us kind of to take a step back farther and look at the many different examples as we look at our foreign policy with different countries around the world. What we see as a direct consequence of isolating different countries or putting draconian sanctions on them, not really looking at the world from a pragmatic, realist perspective, but instead going around and using a stick to punish other countries that we say are not good or that are evil, but not looking at what are the effects of this? What are the consequences of this policy? When we question why are these other countries turning to those who we have an adversarial relationship with, well, what do you think is going to happen when we isolate them from both the United States, but really any other countries that we do business with? So unfortunately, the United States foreign policy has been largely based on it's us or them. You're either on the side of democracy or on the side of autocracy. And I think it's interesting when you look at the relationship with India. President Biden just had his big welcome for Prime Minister Modi and a state dinner. He's addressing Congress. This has been a tough challenge for President Biden and his team to stick with their kind of puritanical democracy versus autocracy approach because India is the largest democracy in the world, but they also have a policy of building relationships and doing business with any other country. They don't actually have treaty allies intentionally. And so they do business with the United States. They do business with Russia. They do business with other countries that the United States is sanctioning. And it's put the United States in a pretty tough spot because of that. So all of that is to say, whether it's Cuba or any of these other countries, we need leaders who have foresight and who are actually looking at, hey, before we advance a certain policy or sanctions, which we know really almost never have the intended effect, and there's many unintended negative consequences, both on innocent people as well as our country. Before we do these things, we should really put on our realism glasses and understand what will the consequences of this be, both in the near term as well as in the long term, and does it actually serve the interests of the American people and our country? We got to stop having a foreign policy that's just focused on, well, we got to go punish this guy and punish that bad guy and punish this country. How does that actually help us? How does it help the American people? How does it help our security and our economy? Those are the questions that our leaders need to be asking themselves and making their decisions based on that, rather than just running around the world with a big stick trying to be the world's police.
I think when you talk about India too, it kind of gets to this size. And at first they're developing countries. I mean, you can look at China, it's kind of not similar in the sense politically, but it's just, you look at their development, it's not a real threat to us. It's economically important. So we'll just kind of look the other way. And then we don't really discuss those bigger issues. And then it gets almost too big to figure out. It's too big to take on, but because you can't actually give up the economic relationships. You've given up a lot of your diplomatic power. But it comes to a country the size of Cuba, and I do know we have a lot of Cuban dissidents in our country who do not want us working with this oppressive regime. And I understand that, but it seems like there's ways forward that we're just not utilizing.